People often come to me and they ask me, how do I get better, Mr. Taxi? How do I improve? And initially my first thoughts are to increase your knowledge, to have a stronger sense of awareness. To get better, you can figure out more aspects of the game, the fundamentals, the reality of the universe of the game, calculating each risk reward, how things play out, the science of the game. You can improve that way. You can also improve by understanding people, the driving force behind your opponent in the game. But what I think is quite interesting is that the question itself, how do I get better, poses some interesting emotional concepts. And I think that emotional aspect of the question, how do I get better, is what holds people back. Because the science of the game and the science of the opponents, the outside of understanding and improvement, is very visible to you. You can see it, you can calculate, you can break down, you can share, you can understand that. It can be laid out for you. Now, understanding yourself. It's the understanding that you probably hold yourself back emotionally. To be good at something, you have to have a drive, a push, or a pull that motivates you to get better. Now, I think emotionally, if you have this thought in you, this how do I get better feeling, then you have to come to terms and accept the reality of your emotions. And you have to accept that within yourself you feel as though you're not good enough. Because otherwise, why would you want to improve? So you have that feeling inside of you. Now, one of the keys to improvement is not letting emotions take control. So although you have this feeling of I'm not good enough, you don't let that feeling overtake you, right? Because if you let the feeling of I'm not good enough overtake who you are, then you're just gonna stop trying, because there's gonna be no point, because you're just never gonna be good enough. The flaw in the opposite approach, in thinking that you are good enough, is that you'll just never want to improve, because there's no point. You've already reached the point in which you are satisfied, that you are content. And it's true that you are simultaneously good enough and not good enough at the same time. How do you come to manage those feelings in balance and duality? And so the key here is to balance and understand those two aspects of yourself for improvement. Because both statements are true, and let me explain that. So obviously, you are not good enough. You have that feeling, and it is a true feeling, because if you were good enough, you would be winning every single tournament. You would have maintained and reached perfection. An impossibility, but that is probably the human drive, the human goal. Because of that, there is always going to be room for improvement, because humans are flawed. On the opposite spectrum, it's also true that you are good enough, right? How can you be good enough, you probably are asking. Well, it's the understanding that you are where you are in this exact moment for a reason. Your skill set places you where you are because of everything that happened in your past. So there is nothing that you can do to change the past. You only have control of the present. And if you have no control of who you are in this exact moment, then the only thing you can do is come to accept the reality of who you are. Now, accepting that reality means accepting your weakness, and it also means accepting the strength that comes with that weakness, and truly the strength in understanding that weakness. The feeling of not being good enough and being good enough can be taken away, right? And once you take away that attachment, that is when you're able to have the true balance. And that true balance is called understanding, right? You understand that you aren't good enough, that you have ways to go, you have things you can improve on. There is a world around you in which there's tons of data to collect for you to improve. And there are countless people that are ahead of you in that path, behind you, on the same road, on different roads. It is also the understanding that you are good enough, that only you can walk your own path. Only you have what it takes to make you special. Whatever it is that your playstyle in Tekken revolves around, although it may have weaknesses or inherent flaws, there has to be inherent strength. And it's about honing those strengths, understanding your flaws, and then diminishing them as much as possible, right? There is the understanding that even if you are good enough, there is still more you can do, right? You are not perfect. And if I was to relate this concept into a direct Tekken analogy, I would put it in the form of Anna's full crouch mix-up, right? So she has options available to her, low and mid, etc. Now, you can avoid every single option by sidewalking her, right? Now, that is the weakness of the full crouch mix-up. Now, although that is the inherent weakness, that existence, right, of a weakness makes it also a strength, right? Because with this knowledge, you can now do homing moves, because you understand that although there is a weakness, there is the answer. There is the opposite. And that opposite being the strength. You see, the flaw of the move can be used to your advantage with understanding. Just like yourself. So if I had to surmise the point that I'm trying to make here, it's that you have a long way to go on your path. Do not stop halfway because you think that you've reached the finish line. You haven't. But also, do not stop halfway because you think the finish line is too far away. You have a long, long journey ahead of you. You must come to accept this without stopping.